Hi folks, and welcome to A&P with Dr. O. We are now ready to take a further look at the sarcomere. Let's go ahead and refer back to our skeletal muscle fiber model for just a moment, again, just to get our bearings. When we talked about this skeletal muscle fiber model, we looked at the myofibrils, these bundles of proteins, and we did briefly talk about how the arrangement of those proteins comes together to form the sarcomere, which we can see right here. The sarcomere, again, is the functional unit of the skeletal muscle fiber. What this model doesn't show is very much detail about the sarcomere structure. That's where this other figure comes into play. We're going to use this figure from the Anatomy and Physiology OpenStax textbook to help us further explore sarcomere structure. Not only is this the functional unit of the skeletal muscle fiber, but this arrangement of proteins repeats, and that's what gives the muscle tissue a banded appearance. That's what is going to be the striations that we see when we look at skeletal muscle underneath the microscope. I'm going to go ahead and start with the edges here, these zigzag lines, and I like to refer to them as zigzag lines because then it helps me to connect that each of these are going to be the Z line. And this marks the end of one sarcomere. Again, they are going to repeat. So there'll be another one coming next and another one coming next and so forth. Right now we're just focusing on this one, and the borders are going to be these Z lines. There are two types of filaments in the sarcomere. We are going to have thin filaments, and then we are also going to have thick filaments. The thin filaments are lighter, the thick filaments are darker. The primary protein in the thin filament is actin. The primary protein in the thick filament is myosin, but other proteins are present as well, and we'll see that when we talk more about the sarcomere in lecture. We notice that in some parts of the sarcomere, the thin and thick filaments overlap. When the thin and thick filaments overlap, we call that the A band. And then when we have thin filaments only, which we see here on the edges, we call that the I band. And then this area where it's only thick, we call that the H band. Again, we'll talk a lot more about these parts of the sarcomere in lecture. We'll see how these parts interact. And when these parts interact with one another, that's how we are going to have skeletal muscle contraction. Because again, the sarcomere is the functional unit of the skeletal muscle fiber.